I'm Sophia Martinez, 28 years old, and I just spent $28,000 on a Maldives villa for people who aren't technically my family. Meanwhile, my biological family is currently posting photos from their annual Lake Tahoe retreat, the one I wasn't invited to for the third year running. You might think I've lost my mind, but wait until you hear what I discovered about why they've been excluding me. The truth about my loving family will shock you as much as it did me. Some betrayals run deeper than blood. Hey everyone! Before we dive into this wild family drama, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from. If you've ever felt like the family outcast, smash that like button because you're going to want to see how this story unfolds. Hit subscribe because trust me, you won't want to miss how I served justice colder than a Maldives cocktail. 3 weeks ago, I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it. Another perfectly curated family photo from what my sister Emma called their spontaneous weekend getaway. There was my mom, dad, Emma, my brother Jake, and even my cousin Riley, who lives across the country. Everyone except me. Again. The caption read, "Nothing beats family time. So grateful for these beautiful souls." My stomach twisted as I counted the likes pouring in from relatives commenting about how blessed our family was and how they wished they could join next time. This wasn't the first time. Last Christmas, they had an intimate family dinner that somehow included Emma's boyfriend and Jake's college roommate, but not me. The summer before, they rented a cabin in Montana for a siblings retreat that apparently didn't include all siblings. Each time, I got the same excuse. Limited space, last-minute planning, or my personal favorite, we thought you'd be too busy with work. I'd always been the high achiever in the family. While Emma bounced between jobs and Jake was still figuring himself out at 25, I'd built a successful marketing consultancy from scratch. I owned my own home, had a healthy savings account, and yeah, I worked hard for it. But since when did success make someone less worthy of family inclusion? That night, I decided I was done being hurt. I was done making excuses for them. I picked up my phone and called my mom directly. "Hey, sweetheart," she answered, her voice artificially bright. "How are you doing?" "I'm confused, Mom. I saw the photos from Lake Tahoe. Looks like it was a great family trip." There was a pause. "Oh, that. It was just a small thing, honey. Very last minute. We didn't think you'd be interested anyway with your busy schedule." "You didn't think I'd be interested in spending time with my family? Well, you know how you are about those rustic places. Remember how you complained about the cabin we rented when you were 16? I was speechless. She was referencing something from 12 years ago, and she was wrong about that too. I'd complained about the broken plumbing, not the location itself. "Mom, I'm 30 minutes away from Lake Tahoe. You could have called." "Sophia, don't be dramatic." It wasn't personal. But it felt personal. It felt like a pattern I'd been too blind or too hopeful to see clearly. After we hung up, I sat in my living room staring at my phone. That's when I noticed something I'd missed before. I went back to Emma's Instagram and started scrolling through older posts. There it was, evidence of at least 6 family gatherings over the past 2 years that I hadn't been told about. Birthday dinners, holiday parties, even a celebration for Jake's promotion that I only found out about through social media. But the real knife to my heart came when I saw a photo from my own birthday weekend 3 months ago. While I'd spent it alone thinking everyone forgot, they were all together at my parents' house having what looked like a barbecue. Emma had posted it with the caption, "Sunday fun day with the fam." My own birthday. They'd gathered without me on my own birthday. I called my best friend Maya, my hands shaking as I explained what I discovered. "Sophia, that's not normal family dysfunction. That's deliberate exclusion," she said, her voice gentle but firm. "Have you ever asked them directly why this keeps happening?" "I've tried bringing it up, but they always have excuses. I'm starting to think." I paused, the words feeling heavy. "I'm starting to think they don't want me there." "But why? That doesn't make sense. You're successful, you're kind, you've never done anything to hurt them." That question haunted me for days. Why would my own family systematically exclude me? I'd been the good daughter. I'd helped pay for Jake's college when he couldn't get enough financial aid. I'd supported Emma through her divorce, letting her live with me for 6 months rent-free. I'd never missed a birthday, never forgotten a holiday gift, never caused family drama. The answer came in the most unexpected way. I was having lunch with my Aunt Carol, my mom's sister, who was visiting from out of state. We were catching up when she mentioned how proud she was of me for handling everything so well. Handling what? I asked. Her face went pale. Oh honey, I thought you knew. About your parents' financial situation. My blood went cold. What financial situation? Carol looked like she wanted to disappear. Sophia, they've been struggling for almost 3 years. Your dad's business took a huge hit during the pandemic, and they had to take out a second mortgage on the house. I thought. I assumed you knew, and that's why you were giving them space. Giving them space? Aunt Carol, they've been excluding me from everything. I had no idea they were struggling. The color drained from her face completely. Oh my God. Sophia, they've been telling everyone that you knew about their money problems and that you refused to help. They said you told them your success was your own and that they needed to figure it out themselves. The restaurant felt like it was spinning. I never said anything like that. I would never say anything like that. They said you were embarrassed to be seen with them now that you'd made it. That's why they stopped inviting you places. They said it was to protect their pride because they couldn't afford to keep up with your lifestyle. I felt sick. Not only had my family been lying to me, but they'd been lying about me. They'd painted me as some cold, money-obsessed daughter who'd abandoned her family in their time of need. And I'd had no idea they even needed help. Aunt Carol, I said quietly, I've been excluded from family gatherings for 2 years. They never told me they were struggling. If I'd known, I would have helped in a heartbeat. The look of horror on her face confirmed what I was beginning to suspect. This went deeper than miscommunication or hurt feelings. This was deliberate, calculated exclusion. But why? That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation, every excuse, every moment I'd felt like an outsider in my own family. But now I had a new lens to view it all through, and the picture that emerged was uglier than I'd imagined. I spent the next day doing something I'd never done before, investigating my own family. I started with public records. It took some digging, but I found what I was looking for. My parents had indeed taken out a second mortgage 18 months ago. But there was more. They'd also opened 3 new credit cards and had taken out a personal loan for $30,000. The timeline didn't add up with what Aunt Carol had told me. This financial distress had started before the pandemic, not because of it. Then I remembered something. 2 years ago, Emma had asked me for a small loan of $5,000 to help with her divorce attorney fees. I'd given it to her immediately, no questions asked, and told her to pay me back whenever she could. She never had, and I'd never pressed her for it because I thought she was struggling. But what if she wasn't struggling? What if that money had gone somewhere else entirely? I decided to call Emma directly. I needed to test a theory. Hey Em, I said when she picked up. I was just thinking about that loan I gave you for your attorney. How are things going with paying that back? There was a long pause. What loan? My heart started racing. The $5,000 I gave you 2 years ago for your divorce attorney. Oh, that. Sophia, you said that was a gift, remember? You said I didn't need to pay you back because family helps family. I had never said any such thing. I remember the conversation clearly because I'd been careful to call it a loan, not a gift. I'd even texted her afterward confirming the amount and that she could pay me back when her situation improved. Emma, I specifically said it was a loan. I have the text messages. I don't know what text you're talking about, but I definitely remember you saying it was a gift. Besides, it's not like you need the money. That phrase hit me like a slap. It's not like you need the money. How many times had I heard variations of that from my family? When they'd forgotten my birthday and I'd mentioned feeling hurt, Mom had said, "It's not like you need the attention." When Jake had borrowed my car for a week and returned it with a broken side mirror, he'd shrugged and said, "It's not like you can't afford to fix it." I hung up and immediately went to find those text messages. They were there, exactly as I remembered. Emma had thanked me for the loan and promised to pay me back as soon as things stabilize. But more importantly, I found something else in our text history. Just 3 months after I'd given her that loan, she'd sent me photos from a weekend trip to Napa Valley with some friends. Expensive hotels, wine tastings, fancy dinners. If she could afford a luxury weekend in wine country, she could afford to at least start paying back her loan. I started thinking about other instances. Jake's emergency car repair that I'd helped with, $800. My parents' unexpected HVAC replacement that I'd contributed $1,500 toward. Each time, I'd been told it was urgent, that they had no other options, that they'd pay me back soon. But none of them ever had. And now I was realizing they'd never intended to. I called Maya again. "I think my family has been scamming me," I said without preamble. "What do you mean?" "I've given them thousands of dollars over the years. They always called them loans, always promised to pay me back, but they never did. And now they're telling people I'm the one who refuses to help them." Sophia, that's financial abuse. The words hit me like a physical blow. Financial abuse. I'd heard the term before, but never thought it could apply to me. I was successful, independent, educated. How could I be a victim of financial abuse? But as Maya and I talked through the pattern, it became clear that's exactly what had been happening. They'd identified me as the family cash cow and had been systematically exploiting my love and loyalty. When I'd started becoming more successful and potentially harder to manipulate, they'd shifted strategies. Instead of continuing to ask for money directly, they'd begun painting me as the selfish, money-obsessed family member who'd abandoned them. This served two purposes. It protected their pride by making me the villain, and it justified excluding me from family events where they might feel obligated to include me or where I might notice their continued financial struggles. "But here's what I don't understand," I told Maya. "Why exclude me instead of just asking for help? I would have helped them. I always have. Because then they'd owe you gratitude," Maya said. "And maybe they'd have to acknowledge that your success isn't something to resent, but something that benefits the whole family. Some people would rather be victims than admit someone they've always seen as lesser than has surpassed them." That night, I made a decision that would change everything. I wasn't going to confront them directly. I wasn't going to beg for inclusion or try to defend myself against their lies. I was going to do something that would force the truth into the light. I was going to create my own family gathering, but not with them. I started making a list of people who had actually been there for me over the years. Maya, obviously. My mentor from college, Dr. Peterson, who'd guided my career and had become like a father figure. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chin, who'd brought me soup when I was sick and had listened to my work stress with endless patience. My gym trainer, Marcus, who'd become a genuine friend and had supported me through my worst days of family exclusion. These people had shown me more love and loyalty than my biological family had in years. They'd celebrated my successes without resentment, supported me through failures without judgment, and never once asked me for money while pretending it was for my own good. I opened my laptop and started researching luxury resorts in the Maldives. If my family wanted to paint me as the money-obsessed daughter who flaunted her success, then maybe it was time to give them something real to talk about. But more importantly, it was time to show the people who actually deserved my generosity just how much I valued them. The villa I found was perfect. Overwater bungalows, private beach, world-class spa, and a price tag that would make my family's Lake Tahoe trip look like a camping excursion in comparison. $28,000 for a week in paradise. For the family that actually chose me. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't angry anymore, I was determined. I'd spent too many nights crying over people who had systematically devalued me while benefiting from my success. It was time to invest my energy and resources in people who actually appreciated both. I started with Maya. I called her while she was getting ready for work. "How do you feel about white sandy beaches and overwater bungalows?" I asked. "Is this a hypothetical question, or are you planning a vacation?" "I'm planning justice. Pack your bags for the Maldives." After I explained my plan, Maya was quiet for a long moment. Sophia, this is either the most brilliant power move I've ever heard or you're having a breakdown. But either way, I'm in. Next, I called Dr. Peterson. At 72, he'd been talking about wanting to travel more since his retirement, but his professor's pension didn't allow for luxury trips. Dr. Peterson, how would you like to be my guest for a week in the Maldives? All expenses paid, just bring yourself and a good book. Sophia, dear, that's incredibly generous, but I couldn't possibly accept. Please, I interrupted. You've given me more guidance and support than my own father. Let me give something back to someone who actually deserves it. His voice got emotional. You know, in 40 years of teaching, I've watched a lot of students grow up. But seeing who you've become despite everything you've told me about your family situation. Sophia, it would be my honor. Mrs. Chin was harder to convince, but only because she was worried about being a burden. Sweetie, I'm 86 years old. I'll slow you down. Mrs. Chin, you've been more of a mother to me than my own mother these past few years. I want to spoil you rotten. Besides, the villa has a full staff. You won't have to lift a finger except to hold a tropical drink. Marcus was the easiest sell. Are you serious right now? Because I will literally run to the airport. But I had one more person to invite, and this one would be the most important. I drove to the small law office where my friend James worked. We'd met at a networking event 3 years ago, and he'd become one of my closest friends. He was also a family law attorney who specialized in financial abuse cases. I need to ask you something, both as a friend and as a lawyer, I said after explaining the situation. Shoot. Is what they've been doing actually illegal? James leaned back in his chair, his expression serious. The financial stuff? Probably not illegal, but definitely unethical. They asked, you gave, they didn't pay back. Without a written contract, it's hard to prove fraud. But the systematic exclusion while spreading lies about you? That could actually constitute defamation if they're damaging your reputation with other family members or mutual friends. What if I wanted to document everything before confronting them? I'd say that's smart. Get everything in writing, screenshot those social media posts before they can delete them, and maybe. He paused, looking thoughtful. Maybe create a situation where they'll expose themselves publicly. What do you mean? Well, if they've been telling people you're too selfish to help family, what do you think they'll do when they find out you spent $30,000 on a vacation for other people? I smiled. They'll lose their minds. Exactly. And if they react publicly, on social media or in front of other family members, they'll essentially be admitting that their narrative about you being selfish is false. After all, how can you be too selfish to help family while simultaneously being generous enough to spend that kind of money on friends? James, you're brilliant. And you're coming to the Maldives with us. I thought you'd never ask. That afternoon, I booked the villa. $28,000 for 7 days in paradise for 6 people who had earned their place in my life through love, respect, and genuine friendship rather than biological accident. But I wasn't done. I had one more move to make, and this one would ensure my family got the message loud and clear. I called the best photographer in the city, Elena Rodriguez, whose work I'd seen at gallery openings. She specialized in luxury lifestyle photography. Elena, I have a proposition for you. How would you like an all-expenses-paid trip to the Maldives in exchange for documenting the most expensive family vacation I've ever planned? I'm listening. I want every moment captured. Professional quality photos and videos that showcase exactly how I choose to spend my money on people who actually matter to me. Elena was intrigued. When I explained the full situation, she became passionate about the project. Sophia, I've been the family scapegoat too. This isn't just a vacation documentation. This is art. This is a statement about chosen family versus biological family. I'm in, and I'm going to make sure these photos are magazine-worthy. With my guest list finalized, I started planning the details. But first, I needed to do something that felt both petty and necessary. I needed to make sure my family would find out about this trip in the most dramatic way possible. I went to my parents' house that evening. They were surprised to see me. I hadn't been invited over in months. Sophia, Mom said, her voice overly bright. What brings you by? I just wanted to let you know I'll be out of touch for a week starting next Monday. I'm taking a little vacation. Oh, how nice. Somewhere local. The Maldives, actually. I rented a villa for some friends. Dad looked up from his newspaper. The Maldives? That must be expensive. It was. About $28,000 for the week. But you know how it is. Money isn't everything, and the people I'm going with are worth every penny. I watched their faces carefully. Mom's smile faltered for just a second, and Dad's eyebrows shot up. $28,000. Emma's voice came from the kitchen. She must have been listening from the other room. Sophia, that's insane. That's more than some people make in a year. I know. It's crazy what you can do when you don't have family financial obligations weighing you down. The room went dead silent. I could practically hear the wheels turning in their heads. Well, Mom said, her voice strained, I hope you have a wonderful time with your friends. I will. They've been so supportive lately, especially while I've been dealing with some family issues. It's amazing how much clearer things become when you're surrounded by people who genuinely care about you. I left shortly after, but not before I heard Emma whisper harshly to Mom, $28,000, and she's never offered to help us with anything. Perfect. The seeds were planted. Over the next few days, I finalized every detail of the trip. First-class flights for everyone, premium transfers, champagne service, spa appointments, private dinners on the beach. I spared no expense because this wasn't just a vacation, it was a statement. The night before we left, Maya came over to help me pack. Are you nervous? She asked. No, I said, and I was surprised to realize it was true. I'm excited. For the first time in years, I'm doing something purely for the joy of it, with people who appreciate me for who I am, not what I can provide. And if your family freaks out while you're gone, then they'll show their true colors to everyone, won't they? I posted one photo on Instagram before turning off my phone for the trip, a picture of our boarding passes fanned out on the airport lounge table, with the caption, Adventures with my chosen family. Sometimes the most expensive gifts are the ones you give to people who would love you even if you had nothing. Then I turned off my phone and focused on the people who had earned their place in my life through years of genuine love and support. The people my biological family had inadvertently taught me to value above all else, the ones who chose me back. The Maldives was everything I'd hoped for and more. For 7 days, I experienced what it felt like to be surrounded by genuine love and appreciation. Dr. Peterson spent his mornings reading philosophy books in an overwater hammock, occasionally sharing profound insights about life transitions. Mrs. Chin discovered a love for snorkeling at age 86, laughing like a teenager as tropical fish swam around her. Marcus and James became fast friends, bonding over early morning workouts on the beach. Maya and I spent hours talking about everything except my biological family, and for the first time in years, I felt truly peaceful. Elena captured everything beautifully. The photos were stunning, not just because of the setting, but because everyone looked genuinely happy. There was something magical about the way authentic joy translated through her lens. On day 4, I made a decision that would change everything. I turned my phone back on. 47 missed calls. 138 text messages. My Instagram had blown up with comments and direct messages. But it wasn't the volume that shocked me, it was the content. My family hadn't just noticed my vacation. They'd completely lost their minds about it. It started with Emma's Instagram story, posted just hours after my boarding pass photo. She'd screenshot my post and added her own text. Must be nice to have money to waste on strangers while your own family struggles. Some people forget where they came from. But that was just the beginning. My cousin Riley had shared Emma's story with her own commentary. This is heartbreaking. Imagine choosing random friends over the people who raised you and loved you first. My mom had posted a vague Facebook status that I knew was about me. Sometimes your biggest disappointments come from the people you love most. Praying for family members who have lost their way. But the most damaging post came from Jake. He'd written a long Facebook post that I screenshotted immediately before he could delete it. Watching my sister spend more money on a single vacation than most families see in a year while refusing to help our parents through financial hardship has been a real eye-opener about who she's become. Success without compassion isn't success at all. Our parents sacrificed everything for us kids, and this is how she repays them. Some people change when they get money, and not always for the better. The post had dozens of comments from extended family and family friends, all expressing shock and disappointment in me. Several relatives I hadn't heard from in years had chimed in with their own stories about my supposed selfishness and ingratitude. But here's what they didn't know. I'd been documenting everything for months. I had screenshots of all their family gatherings that I'd been excluded from. I had text messages showing they'd never once asked me for help. I had Aunt Carol willing to testify that they'd been lying about me refusing to help them. It was time to set the record straight. I crafted my response carefully. James helped me review it for any legal issues. Dr. Peterson provided wisdom about taking the high road while still defending myself. But ultimately, the words were all mine. I posted a series of Instagram stories, each one methodically dismantling their narrative. Story 1. A screenshot of Jake's Facebook post with my response. This is interesting, Jake. Can you show me where you or anyone else asked me for help with mom and dad's financial situation? Because I have 2 years of text messages, and not once did anyone mention they were struggling. Story 2. Screenshots of my text conversations with Emma about her loan, showing clearly that she'd acknowledged it was a loan and promised to pay it back, followed by photos of her Napa Valley trip just months later. Also interesting that someone who couldn't pay back a $5,000 loan could afford luxury wine country weekends. Story 3. A photo of my banking records showing the thousands of dollars I'd given family members over the years, with all identifying information except the amounts blurred out. Here's every loan and gift I've given family members over the past 5 years. Notice how the payments all go one way. Story 4. Screenshots of social media posts showing family gatherings I wasn't invited to, including the one from my own birthday weekend. And here's why I'm spending my money on people who actually want me around. But the final story was the most powerful. It was a video Elena had taken of our group on the beach, everyone laughing as Mrs. Chen tried to teach Dr. Peterson how to build a sandcastle. The joy was infectious, the love was obvious. My caption read, "These people have shown me more genuine love and support in the past 3 years than my biological family has in the past decade. When I succeed, they celebrate with me. When I struggle, they support me. When I'm generous, they appreciate it instead of expecting more. This is what healthy family looks like. Sometimes it's not about blood, it's about who shows up." Within hours, the tide began to turn. Aunt Carol commented publicly on Jake's Facebook post, contradicting his version of events and confirming that no one had told me about our parents' financial situation. Several family friends who knew me personally began questioning the narrative my siblings had created. But the real vindication came from an unexpected source, my Uncle David, my dad's brother, who had apparently been watching this drama unfold with growing disgust. He posted his own Facebook status that tagged my entire immediate family. "I've watched this family treat Sophia like an ATM for years while simultaneously resenting her success. The girl has given you thousands of dollars, never missed a family obligation, and worked her tail off to build a good life. Instead of being proud of her, you've ostracized her and then lied about why. Now you're publicly shaming her for spending her own money on people who actually appreciate her? You should all be ashamed of yourselves. Sophia, if you're reading this, your uncle is proud of you. Come visit us anytime. You'll always be welcome here." My phone started ringing. First Emma, then Jake, then my parents. I declined every call. Instead, I posted one final Instagram story. "To my biological family currently blowing up my phone, you've had years to treat me with the respect and love I deserved. You chose to exclude, exploit, and lie about me instead. I'm no longer interested in explaining myself to people who decided I wasn't worth including in their lives. I'll be spending my energy on the people who chose me back. Then I turned my phone off again and rejoined my chosen family for a sunset dinner on the beach. The war was over. And for the first time in years, I had won. When we returned from the Maldives, the fallout was swift and devastating for my biological family's carefully constructed narrative. The truth, once exposed, had a way of spreading faster than their lies ever could. I came home to an email from my cousin Madison, Uncle David's daughter, who lived in another state and had watched the entire drama unfold on social media. Her message was both heartbreaking and vindicating. Sophia, I had no idea what was really happening. For 2 years, every family gathering we attended, your parents and siblings talked about how you'd changed since becoming successful, how you looked down on the family now, how you'd refused to help them when they needed it most. They made you sound like this cold, money-obsessed person who thought she was too good for us. I'm so sorry I believed them without questioning it. After seeing Uncle David's post and your evidence, I realized they've been lying about you to the entire extended family. I wanted you to know that Madison and I are setting the record straight with everyone we can. This was bigger than I'd realized. My immediate family hadn't just been excluding and exploiting me, they'd been systematically destroying my reputation with the entire extended family for years. But the most shocking revelation came from Maya, who had been doing some detective work of her own while I tried to process everything. Sophia, you need to see this, she said, showing up at my house with her laptop. Remember how your family claimed they were struggling financially because of your dad's business? Yeah, what about it? I did some digging into public business records. Your dad's business isn't struggling. In fact, it's doing better than ever. He landed 2 major contracts last year, and his revenue is up 40% from pre-pandemic levels. My blood went cold. What are you saying? I'm saying they lied about being in financial trouble. The second mortgage and credit cards? I think they were funding their lifestyle upgrades, not covering financial hardship. Maya showed me the evidence she'd found. Not only was my father's construction business thriving, but my parents had made several major purchases in the past year. A new boat, a kitchen renovation, and a timeshare in Florida. They weren't struggling, I said, the full picture finally becoming clear. They were spending beyond their means and expected me to subsidize their lifestyle while telling everyone I was too selfish to help with their hardship. It gets worse, Maya said. Emma's been posting about her new apartment. The rent is $2,800 a month. Sophia, that's more than most people pay for mortgages. She's not struggling either. The financial manipulation had been even more calculated than I'd realized. They hadn't needed my money, they'd wanted it. They'd wanted to maintain a lifestyle they couldn't afford while making me the villain for their own poor financial choices. My phone had been buzzing constantly since I'd turned it back on. Finally, I decided to listen to one of the voicemails. It was from my mother, and her tone had shifted dramatically from her previous messages. Sophia, honey, I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. We never meant to exclude you from anything. You know how disorganized we can be with planning. And about the money situation, well, we didn't want to burden you with our problems. We thought we were protecting you. Please call me back so we can talk about this like a family. The gaslighting was breathtaking. Now that their lies had been exposed publicly, suddenly it was all a misunderstanding. Jake's voicemail was more aggressive. Sophia, what you did was really messed up. Airing family business on social media like that. We're supposed to handle these things privately. You've embarrassed the whole family. Even in the face of overwhelming evidence of their deception, he was trying to make me the bad guy for defending myself. But Emma's message was the most telling. Sophia, I think we both said some things we didn't mean. Maybe we can move past all this drama? I'd love to get together soon and catch up. I saw your Maldives photos. It looked amazing. Maybe next time you plan something like that, we could come too. She was trying to position herself for future benefits while completely ignoring the years of systematic exclusion and lies. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I got a message from someone I hadn't expected, my high school friend Jessica, who I'd lost touch with years ago. Hey, Sophia. I saw all the family drama on social media, mutual friends. You know how it is. I wanted to reach out because something similar happened to me with my family a few years ago. Would you like to get coffee? I think you might benefit from talking to someone who's been through this. We met the next day, and Jessica's story was eerily similar to mine. Her family had also systematically excluded her while painting her as the selfish one, all because her success made them uncomfortable. The hardest part, she told me, was accepting that the family I'd been trying so hard to be part of didn't actually exist. They didn't want me. They wanted what I could provide. How did you get past it? Therapy, lots of therapy. And building a chosen family like you did. But Sophia, I have to warn you, this isn't over. Now that their lies are exposed, they're going to try to love bomb you back into the fold. They'll apologize, promise to change, maybe even invite you to a few things. But it won't last. As soon as they think you've forgiven them, they'll go back to their old patterns. So what do? You set boundaries and stick to them. You decide what kind of relationship, if any, you want with these people. And you remember that you don't owe anyone access to your life just because you share DNA. That evening, Uncle David called me directly. Sophia, I owe you an apology. I've been watching this situation for months, and I should have spoken up sooner. Your parents and siblings have been bad-mouthing you to anyone who would listen, and I let it happen because I didn't want to cause family drama. Thank you for finally saying something, Uncle David. I want you to know that your Aunt Linda and I see right through their nonsense. We'd like to have you over for dinner soon. Just us, no drama, no agenda. You're our niece, and we love you. For the first time in this whole ordeal, I started crying. Not from sadness or anger, but from relief. There were people in my extended family who saw the truth, who valued me as a person rather than as a resource. The collapse of my immediate family's narrative was complete. They'd lost credibility with extended family, exposed themselves as manipulative liars, and revealed the true nature of their feelings about my success. But more importantly, I'd learned who really had my back. And it wasn't the people who shared my last name. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my home office, looking at a framed photo from our Maldives trip. It's the one Elena took of all of us on our last night, watching the sunset from our villa's deck. Everyone looks genuinely happy, genuinely at peace. It's a reminder of what family should feel like. The aftermath of my public revelation continued to ripple through my extended family for months. 3 more relatives reached out to share their own stories of being manipulated and excluded by my immediate family. Apparently, I wasn't their only victim, just their most successful target. My parents eventually stopped calling. The last message I received was from my father, 3 months ago. Sophia, we're disappointed that you've chosen to air our private family matters publicly. When you're ready to apologize and move forward like adults, we'll be here. Even then, he couldn't admit wrongdoing. Even then, I was expected to apologize for defending myself. I didn't respond. I'd learned that some people would rather maintain their victim narrative than acknowledge their role in creating the problem. Emma tried a different approach. She sent me a birthday card last month with a long handwritten note about healing our relationship and putting the past behind us. She conveniently left out any acknowledgement of her lies or any mention of paying back the money she owed me. The card went straight into the trash. Jake's approach was more direct. He showed up at my house unannounced 2 weeks ago, claiming he wanted to hash this out face to face. I didn't let him in. Through the door, I told him that if he wanted to have a conversation, he could start by publicly correcting the lies he'd posted about me and paying back the money he'd borrowed. He left angry, muttering about how I'd become impossible to deal with. But here's what they didn't understand. I wasn't angry anymore. I'd moved past anger months ago and arrived at something much more powerful: indifference. They no longer had the ability to hurt me because I no longer valued their opinion of me. The real healing came from the relationships I chose to nurture. My chosen family has become even stronger. Dr. Peterson and I have lunch every month, where he shares stories from his teaching days, and I update him on my business growth. Mrs. Chin invited me to be her +1 to her grandson's wedding last month. She introduced me to everyone as her daughter, Sophia. Marcus and I started a tradition of weekend hiking trips, and James has become my closest confidant for both personal and legal matters. Maya and I took another trip together last month, a more modest one to Sedona, where we hiked and talked about how much our lives had changed since the Maldives revelation. She pointed out something I hadn't fully appreciated. My business had actually grown significantly since I'd stopped being financially drained by my family's constant emergencies. It's amazing what you can accomplish when you're not constantly worried about who's going to ask you for money next, she said. She was right. Without the emotional and financial drain of managing my family's dysfunction, I'd been able to focus entirely on my own goals. I'd landed 3 major clients, hired 2 employees, and was looking at expanding into a larger office space. But perhaps the most meaningful development was the relationship I'd built with Uncle David and Aunt Linda. They'd kept their promise and had me over for dinner regularly. Through them, I'd reconnected with cousins I hadn't seen in years and discovered a whole branch of my family tree that actually functioned like a healthy family should. You know, Aunt Linda told me during our last dinner, I always wondered why you stopped coming to family gatherings. Your parents always said you were too busy with work, but I could tell there was more to it. Why didn't you reach out before? Honestly, I thought maybe success had changed you like they said. I'm ashamed I didn't dig deeper or trust my instincts. Your uncle always said something didn't add up about their stories. Uncle David nodded. I should have called you directly instead of believing secondhand information. That's my regret in all this. These conversations helped me realize that my immediate family's manipulation had been even more extensive than I'd known. They'd been controlling the narrative about me with the entire extended family, probably to prevent me from building the very relationships that could have exposed their lies earlier. Last week, I made a decision that felt both symbolic and practical. I changed my last name. Not to something completely different, but to my maternal grandmother's maiden name, Sinclair. She'd been the one person in my childhood who'd always made me feel unconditionally loved and valued. Taking her name felt like honoring the kind of family love I'd learned to recognize and appreciate. The paperwork was finalized yesterday. I'm officially Sophia Sinclair now. It feels like closing one chapter and opening another. I've also been seeing a therapist who specializes in family estrangement and financial abuse. She's helped me understand that what I experienced wasn't just garden-variety family dysfunction, it was a systematic pattern of exploitation disguised as love. She's also helped me work through the guilt I sometimes still feel about abandoning my biological family. You didn't abandon them, she reminds me regularly. You stopped allowing yourself to be exploited. There's a difference. Tomorrow, I'm flying to visit Elena in Los Angeles. She's putting together a gallery showing that includes some of our Maldives photos as part of a series on chosen family. The title of the exhibition is Blood vs. Bond, Portraits of Real Family. Next month, I'm taking Mrs. Chin to visit her sister in Hawaii, a trip she's dreamed about for years, but never thought she could afford. The week after that, Dr. Peterson and I are going to a philosophy conference in Boston that he's excited about. These are the people who deserve my generosity, my time, and my love. These are the people who chose me not for what I could provide, but for who I am. As I finish writing this story, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and self-respect? Have you experienced that moment when you realized that the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally actually loved you very conditionally indeed? If my story resonates with you, I'd love to hear about it in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe chosen family can be stronger than biological family, and subscribe for more stories about standing up for yourself even when it's hard. Share this with anyone who needs to hear that it's okay to prioritize people who actually show up for you. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it reminds you that you deserve to be surrounded by people who celebrate your successes instead of resenting them, who support your dreams instead of trying to profit from them, and who choose you every day not because they have to, but because they want to. Sometimes the best family is the one you create for yourself. And sometimes the most expensive gift you can give yourself is the freedom to walk away from people who never deserved you in the first place.